The evening, everything changed. Margaret Chen stood at the entrance of the Harrison estate, smoothing down the emerald silk dress she hadn't worn in 15 years. At 58, with silver threading through her dark hair, she carried herself with the quiet dignity of someone who had survived storms that would have broken others. Inside, James Harrison was laughing with his friends, a champagne flute raised high. The wealthy real estate developer, now in his early 60s with silver temples and an air of arrogance, had sent Margaret the invitation 3 days ago while she scrubbed his kitchen floor. "Saturday night gala," he'd said, barely glancing at her. "Black tie event. You should come, Margaret. See how the other half lives." His friends had chuckled, and Margaret had simply nodded, saying nothing. She knew a cruel joke when she heard one. After 2 years of cleaning the Harrison mansion, she had learned to stay invisible, to let their careless words wash over her like water off stone. But James Harrison didn't know the truth about the quiet woman who cleaned his home. He didn't know that she had once walked through rooms just like his as an equal, before life had taken a different turn. As Margaret entered the grand ballroom, conversation stuttered and stopped. James turned, expecting to see her in borrowed clothes, embarrassed and out of place. Instead, he saw a woman who moved like she belonged there, her bearing straight, her expression serene. "Well, well," James said loudly, drawing everyone's attention. "Our cleaning lady decided to accept my invitation. How wonderful." Laughter rippled through the room, but it was nervous laughter now. Something about Margaret's calm presence made the mockery feel hollow. Caroline Harrison, James's wife, a polished woman in her late 50s, touched her husband's arm. "James," she whispered. "Perhaps we should—" "Should what?" James interrupted. "I'm being hospitable, darling." Margaret walked further into the room, her steps measured and sure. A woman named Diane, wife of a prominent banker, leaned toward her friend. "That dress," she whispered. "That's not from a rental shop. Look at the quality." Margaret stopped in the center of the ballroom, and in that moment the entire atmosphere shifted. When she spoke, her voice was gentle but carried clearly across the room. 23 years ago," Margaret said quietly, "I attended a party in a room very much like this one. I wore this same dress. My husband had just been promoted to senior partner at Chen & Associates. We were celebrating—" James's smile faltered. Something in Margaret's tone made him listen despite himself. 6 months later, Margaret continued, "My husband died in a car accident. The company dissolved in legal battles. I lost everything, the house, the savings, the life we'd built together. I had a daughter to raise alone, and I did what I had to do. I cleaned houses. I worked 3 jobs. I made sure she never went hungry." The room had gone completely silent now. Caroline's hand was pressed to her chest, her eyes glistening. "My daughter graduated from medical school last year," Margaret said, her voice thick with emotion. "Dr. Sarah Chen. She works at Children's Hospital, helping families who can't afford care. Every sacrifice I made was worth it to see her become the woman she is today." Diane spoke up, her voice shaking. "Margaret, I'm so sorry. We had no idea." "How could you?" Margaret asked gently. "You never asked. When you see someone cleaning your floors, you don't see their whole story. You don't see the life they had before, or the dreams they still carry, or the dignity that no circumstance can take away." James Harrison stood frozen, his face pale. The cruel joke he'd planned had become something else entirely, a mirror held up to his own character. Margaret turned to him. "You invited me here to embarrass me, James, to remind me of my place. But what you've actually done is remind everyone in this room that kindness costs nothing, and cruelty diminishes the person who practices it." She reached into her small purse and pulled out a folded envelope. "This is my resignation. I won't be cleaning your home anymore, not because I'm ashamed of honest work, but because I deserve to work for people who see my humanity." Caroline stepped forward suddenly. "Margaret, wait, please." Tears were streaming down her face. "You're right. About all of it. James, this has gone too far." James Harrison seemed to age 10 years in that moment. The arrogance drained from his face, replaced by something that looked like shame. "Margaret, His voice broke. "I don't know what to say." "Then say nothing," Margaret replied, But perhaps think about the people you encounter every day, the waiters, the drivers, the people who make your comfortable life possible. They all have stories. They all matter. An older gentleman stepped forward from the crowd, Robert Chen, Margaret's former brother-in-law. "Margaret," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I've been looking for you for 2 years. When the company dissolved, we lost touch. I've wanted to make things right." Margaret's composure finally cracked. "Robert, the legal settlement from the company. It's been held in trust. $500,000, Margaret. It's been waiting for you. I've been trying to find you to tell you." The room erupted in gasps and whispers. James Harrison looked like he might be sick. Margaret stood very still, processing this information. Then she looked around the room at all these wealthy people who had judged her, who had laughed at her. "I want you, Al, to know something," she said softly. "Even if there had been no settlement, even if I had continued cleaning houses for the rest of my life, I would still have been worthy of respect. Money doesn't make a person valuable. Character does." She turned to James one last time. "I hope you learned something from tonight. Not about judging people by their circumstances, though that's important too, but about the simple act of kindness. It costs nothing, and it means everything." As Margaret walked toward the door, something unexpected happened. Caroline Harrison began to clap. Then Diane joined her. Within moments, the entire ballroom was applauding, many with tears in their eyes. Margaret paused at the threshold and turned back. "I forgive you, James," she said simply. "Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace." 6 months later, Margaret Chen opened a scholarship fund for children who had lost parents. She returned to the work she loved, teaching piano, and found joy in her days again. Her daughter Sarah visited every Sunday, and they would sit together in Margaret's modest but comfortable apartment, drinking tea and sharing stories. James Harrison sent a letter of apology and a donation to Margaret's scholarship fund. She accepted both with grace. Caroline Harrison started volunteering at a shelter for families in crisis, finding purpose she had never known in her privileged life. The story of that night spread through the community, changing conversations, making people pause and think about how they treated others. Margaret never sought attention or praise for what she had done. She had simply told the truth and lived with dignity, and somehow that had been enough to transform hearts. She understood now what her mother had told her long ago, that a person's worth isn't measured in what they own, but in how they treat others, especially when they have nothing to gain from kindness. And in the quiet moments of her life, Margaret felt grateful, not for the money that had been returned to her, though it helped, but for the strength she had found in those difficult years, for the daughter she had raised to be compassionate, and for the simple truth that dignity cannot be taken from someone who refuses to surrender it. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to our channel for more stories about the quiet strength that lives in all of us. Leave a comment below telling us about a time when someone surprised you with their kindness or dignity. Your story might inspire someone else today.